This video is a recording of a live event, about an hour and 15-minute webinar, and it's really packed with all sorts of energy healings and information and explorations into the fine abstract layers of creation. I hope you love it. If you do, please like and subscribe. Dive into tonight's session, which should be very interesting because we're going to be talking about emotions and feelings and the role that emotions and feelings play in the energy healing process. So anyway, it should be exciting and fun, and I'm really happy to be with you always. I'm always happy to be with you, no matter what else is going on. All right. Energy healing is a technology based on focused awareness. And we hardly think about how we focus our awareness because it's so spontaneous and so natural, and it just happens without effort. So, yeah, we hardly think about it, but it turns out that focused awareness is a really powerful thing. And awareness itself is the stuff of which the source of creation is comprised. Yeah, so we focus awareness. Awareness carries all the healing resources with it. It activates and enlivens all that resource and power that resides in the source of creation. Wholeness. It brings wholeness. Awareness brings wholeness. It's like awareness is that piece of wholeness that we possess personally, and that we have this power to like direct it one way or another. And it's clearly an amazing and divine thing because we know that our awareness is completely unconstrained by any of the known laws of nature. I mean, honestly, it's like you can direct awareness anywhere within this field of space and time, anywhere. Inside, outside, space and time, doesn't matter. You can go to the past, you can go to the future, you can go, thank you, all over the universe, to the ends of the universe. Thank you so much. Awareness is unconstrained, unlike the body, which clearly has to live in its linear unfoldment, sequential unfoldment of experience. Awareness does not. When awareness focuses in on parts of the body or parts of the life that are struggling or suffering or need support, awareness brings all those qualities of wholeness and totality with it. So that's essentially how energy healing works. It's really quite simple, and it's something that's accessible to everyone. There's more to it than that, obviously. And that's why we're talking about emotions today, because there's, a relationship between feelings and the way awareness interfaces with feelings. Like there's some mechanics in there that we're going to explore, and exercise. And that's what the energy healing webinars are all about. This is an opportunity for all of us together to have direct experience of energy healing and then discuss that experience. So you've got a question and answer box. If anybody has any questions that come up, please feel free as the meeting is going on. Aw. Thank you. I'm putting my question box up there so I can see when the questions come in. Hello. Oh, hello. Yeah. All right. So why are we going to have 3 minutes of silence now? Because when we close our eyes and awareness sinks into the ocean of eternal silence, absolute, unbounded, unmanifest being, this is the source of our awareness. It's the source of our thinking. It's the source of everything that exists. Every manifest expression in the universe finds its source in the source of creation. This is why I have this lovely image behind me, because this lovely image is a metaphor for the structure of consciousness, right? We have the ocean of eternal unbounded being here, and then we have the manifest layers of creation up here, and there are layers, this area down here is different from this layer in here. This is kind of the emotional layer where all the clouds are, and then there's the physical material level at the grossest, most manifest, densest level, you could say. It's like more abstract down near the bottom, and it's more concrete up at the top. Okay. So we're going to take 3 minutes of silence. I'll ask you to close the eyes. When I ask you to open the eyes, don't come out too fast. Come out slowly so that you can integrate the silence as it's coming out. All right. Thanks for being with me, everyone. Let's close our eyes. 3 minutes. All right. Let's slowly open our eyes. Well, I guess our eyes are open now. It's just a little bit sort of like entropic and busy over here in the background. So, but thank you everyone for contributing your beautiful, luscious, amazing silence to the beginning of this session. Thank you to the source of creation for being everything and for being all of us and all the universe around us. Every particle of the field that touches each person in this session. Thank you for all of that. Thank you to the eternal tradition of wisdom that connects the source of creation with the whole manifest field of creation, that dynamic that allows one to appear as many and then be many, be the many. It's really special. It's something really beautiful. Thank you for our ability to work concisely and efficiently through tonight's webinar. I am so delighted to have all of you with me. It's such a deep, profound pleasure for me. Thank you. Yeah, may our webinar today, really fulfill uh, and bring to the foreground all those points that any of you are interested in, all the information that's most pertinent to each person in this webinar, and all the healings that are most useful and valuable for all of us. For all of us as a collective, healing collective, and also the whole through us to the whole collective. I'm watching your points come in. Thank you. Yeah, thank you all. Okay. I'm grateful. I am grateful. Okay. So the topic of tonight's webinar is emotion and the role of emotions in energy healing. And I was thinking how this webinar is a nice compendium to the previous webinar, because in the last webinar, we spent a lot of time looking at this gap area between the absolute and the relative. And I did a whole webinar on that because that is where the really important work of energy healing gets done. The symptoms show up at the surface, but then the seeds or the cause of the symptom, the roots, can be found down here in the subtle levels of creation. And in order to change or move that energy in the root area so you get a different effect at the surface, requires some facility in navigating this gap down here between the unmanifest field and the manifest field. So we talked about how just coming up to that gap is your pure potential. And all of us have this aspect of our consciousness that we would think of or know as our pure potential. And the pure potential is essentially the same for everyone, because pure infinite potential is infinite potential, whether it's at my root or your root or the next person. It's all of us, every human that's born has this potential to rise to enlightenment and to embody divinity in the fullest possible way, in the way that the divine, which is seated down here in the source of creation, experiences complete fulfillment in its expression through a particular human life. So we all have that potential, and it's really beautiful. And all things do, like the plants and everything. And then just on the other side of the gap is your heart's deepest desire. And that's really important. The heart's deepest desire is established through the pieces of growth, soul growth and development, which were kind of like left over from the previous incarnation and didn't get fulfilled. And the beauty of your heart's deepest desire is that it is absolutely in perfect alignment with the intentions of the divine source of creation for the course of a human life. So at the end of a lifetime, there's some bits and pieces. Something didn't get fulfilled, something was left over. And that something forms the seed of the next incarnation. And that seed is so good that the source of creation, the totality, looks at it and goes, oh yeah, there's a life worth living. Let's provide the resources and all the power required to allow that seed to manifest as a human life, your life, and and may I know myself through that. The whole totality is like, may I know myself better through that experience. So it means that your heart's desire is something you can count on. It's an expression of your most essential truth. When in doubt, you can always refer back to what's going on in the heart, because your heart, it isn't, the heart is structured in such a way that it doesn't tend to get corrupted by or distracted by relative material influences, anything in the relative that happens. I can say from experience working with people, sometimes it happens that if there's a lot of anger or something, a lot of discordant feelings in the heart area, sometimes that can block a person's ability to directly experience their heart's deepest desire. But it doesn't stop the heart's deepest desire from existing. It just, sometimes discordant feelings can block it. So on that note, let's go ahead and just take a little dive into the heart and see what needs to be cleared or purified so that all of us have more direct and complete access and understanding of the nature of our own heart's deepest desire. I think it's fair enough to think of that as emotions or feelings, right? It can be interpreted through the feeling, the channel of feeling. I'm just first settling my awareness into the silence of being, and then feeling, allowing my sense of perception to kind of feel into our collective, and offering all the impressions that come from that feeling back to the source of creation. The source of creation, sort of like that place from where all the right actions occur. And the first thing I'm noticing is I'm just noticing the purity of the heart's deepest desire in each person, and how much like softness and sweetness and goodness there is in each one of you, in each one of us, all of us together. Oh, and that's interesting because our healing collective, and I mean, some of you guys have been with me for literally years, since my first webinars back in 2014 or something. So there's also, you could say, a soul of our healing collective, and there's also a heart's desire of our healing collective. So I'm also kind of cluing into that in a way that I haven't before, which is very sweet and kind of exciting to do that. That very soft, very sweet, there's almost like a kind of longing to express the most powerful, most I would say life transforming in the most gentle, empathetic, and compassionate way. That the desire to transform in the most powerful, and also, oh, thank you, sweetheart. Oh, beautiful. Questions coming in. Yes, the desire to use all of the resources of the being, so creative intelligence and energy and all of each person's strengths, to promote evolutionary transformation in the most gentle and, like, I would say, frictionless way. That's what it feels like. Wow. It feels, I'm like, oh, it's such an honor to be in this group. Thank you. I love it that, like, together, this is what we are. Oh, and I realize, yeah, you guys are so sweet. I love you. Okay, I'm just also moving my camera just a little bit there. Oh, hello. Now I can look at you. Okay. That helps. All right, but going back to the deepest desires of everyone's heart and opening up any channels or clearing any blockages, So what I'm noticing is a coordinated effort between what I would call the God presence, which is that aspect of divinity that's like with each of us in a very personal way throughout the course of the lifetime, and the body elemental, which is the overseeing intelligence in charge of um, the health of the body, the physical constructs, and like the form and function of the physiology. So those two aspects seem to be working in tandem. They're coordinating. And the God presence especially is very much in this area above the head, the upper chakras, and the cord of light as it manifests out the crown of the head. So that area is kind of lighting up, this crown of the head area and the area above the crown. And the first thing that's happening up in this area over the head is, again, the establishment and presence of pure absolute being or silence divine, divine source energy. And what the divine source energy is able to do up in this area, in these, their upper chakras, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I know some energy healers who count to the hundreds up there, but they remind me very much of overtones in, like, for you musicians in the audience, the overtone series, so that the notes, they get closer together as they go up in frequency. You know, I have my flute. Yeah, because as I'm packing everything in my house, certain things have to stay close to me. So I just demonstrate. I haven't played this today, but that's okay. Watch, my fingers don't move. That's the first overtone, is the octave. And then the fifth, so then the fifth, and then the next octave, and then third, then it goes up higher. And if I lift my finger, I can probably get up higher. Anyway, alternate fingerings will take me up higher if I really want to. But the point there is that this is a natural progression of frequencies that you could say are in the same family with each other, or related to each other. And our chakras are like that too, that we have sort of like a foundational chakra in the pelvic floor area. And then what you'll notice is that as you go up, the chakras get closer and closer together. Like the distance from here to here is far less than from here to there, which is less than from there to the middle of the chest. You see how they spread out as they go down, they squish together as they go up, and out the crown of the head, they really squish together. That's why when some, if a person wants to work with, say, chakra number 108 or something like that, right at that point, you're really splitting hairs. Ha ha, no pun intended. So anyway, yeah, they get really close together up there. So I tend to think I'll up to about 12 or so, and then I'm good. The point being that this closeness in relationship to the frequency patterns in these energy nodes that run through the cord of light. So the cord of light's a big meridian that runs right through the body, right? So they get closer, and the relationship between those energy nodes changes, becomes more nuanced. The composers in the audience know that when we bring the notes closer together, it can create more stability, but it can also, if we make them into chords, it can also create chords that are like more flavorful, more rich, to a point. But this coordination of frequency that occurs up above the crown of the head, but is still very much part of your energy field. This area is where the focus of awareness is, and as the awareness focuses there, the natural tendency is to purify. That's usually the first thing that happens, is purification. And the first thing I'm noticing purifying in that area is attachments. And attachments usually appear as like a sort of cloudy material. Sometimes attachments are, and in this case particularly, are based on a relationship with impressions. You know, we have impressions, like you have an experience that makes an impression, and then the impression gives rise to a desire, and the desire leads you to repeat the experience. And so it can make like a loop. And there is a very special bliss associated with the raising of the energy frequencies. And of course, all the energy frequencies exist in all parts of creation all the time. And you have access to all of them. But when you put your awareness in the upper chakras, in this area above the head, the awareness gets to taste the higher frequencies. And the higher frequencies are beautiful. Why I play the piccolo and the flute. The low frequencies are beautiful too, though, right? I'm asking being. And what is besides the attachments that are clearing from the crown, out the crown of the head, what else do we have happening? Integration is happening. And there is the ability to step back from experience enough that experience does not grip awareness, like it doesn't like bind or enslave awareness. That witnessing capacity is integrating in these crown chakras. Nice. And the witnessing is really born of our relationship with the God presence, because the God presence is that, as I was saying, it's like that aspect of totality that's with and in the body all the time, but it's always also witnessing. It's also within the body, but also kind of like slightly outside, also looking from that perspective of wholeness and taking everything into consideration, not just what's inside the body, but the whole picture into the cosmic body also into consideration. And the body of being, the ocean of being, is taken into consideration. That body of being, that ocean of being, is affecting, it's looping from the unmanifest wholeness level of itself up to the astral level. Up to the astral level. Now, the astral body is just one cut below, just one layer of abstraction below the emotional body. And right in between them is the aura. So the emotions, okay, when they become subtler, 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 and they become so subtle that like you hardly know them as emotions, then they appear as uh, frequencies of light in the astral body. I mean, excuse me, the aura. And then from there, the frequencies of light are broken down into their more abstract form, which is flow of awareness, different types of threads. When awareness flows, it flows in channels. And the channels contain various frequencies, and they combine in different ways to give rise to the awareness of color, among other things, and ultimately the awareness of all the other sensory input. But then when we get down below the astral body, down here to the causal body, right? Just above the gap. The causal body is just right in there, right above the gap. It always seems, by my perception, in the causal body, we're again dealing with feeling, but in a different way. It's like all the denser expressions of the body have their roots in the subtler expressions. And so just like the five primal elements, space, air, fire, water, and earth, they have their expressions in the material world they also have these like really, really fine expressions down at the subtlest level of creation just before the unmanifest absolute. And it's not that the fine expression is different from the material, it's all like part of the spectrum of that thing. So it's the same, it's essentially the same with the layers of the physiology, right? You've got your physical, and then if we follow the physical back to its finer, we get etheric, mental, emotional, astral, causal, and then wholeness. But wholeness is looping up into the astral level of the physiology, and it's fortifying the connections in the astral body with the cosmic uh, field, we could say the web of life, which is also made of those same threads. As that looping is happening, I am noticing a kind of poignancy in the heart area. So the heart, it going through these types of actions, subtle actions, where like wholeness loops up to the astral body, something like that. It's it's like an act of devotion because it serves the creator. It serves divinity in some ways, I would say, even more dynamically than it serves us as individuals. We're all affected by it. And especially for those of you in the audience who are struggling with various health concerns, these healings are moving consciousness down here in the root area in order to provide a platform for the body to show up in a much healthier way at the surface. And even though that's great, and like that can be great, like during these webinars, people can have like really huge healings. The divine experiences even more. It experiences even more a transformation, an integration into the material levels of creation and a stabilization of its foundation in the manifest area so that its development and evolution is enhanced systemically. So the little changes that we're making in this webinar in these deeper levels are affecting the way the absolute shows up in the material field, not just for ourselves, but for everybody. We're moving the creation together. It's beautiful. It helps each person heal more, and it also helps the divine, and it also provides a platform for balance in the material field of creation. So needed right now. So every time we have a shift in the way that consciousness is showing up, or the source of creation is showing up in the material field and integrating into the material field, I'm just referring back to the heart's deepest desire, because that's like a foundation of truth. For each one of us, it's a foundation of truth. And for our healing collective, so that the way the healing collective move serves each individual in the most optimized manner, the best possible way. All right. Yeah, I'm looking at our time. Looks like a question's come in. So I'm just thinking, I'm feeling kind of like in between. So I think I'd like to look at some of these questions. One person's asking, what is the relationship between elemental and a devata? That's a great question. And that relates to what's going on down here at this causal level of creation, where the intelligence of the source of creation is showing up as form, very, very abstract form. The answer is that all the forms, the devatas and the elementals, they reside. Oh, and he's saying elemental as in the five primal elements, right? Okay, so yeah, it's like they have, like if I take this, here's a piece of wood. I have a piece of wood right here. Okay, so I've got this piece of wood and it's made of, more than 50% of this piece of wood is earth element, but there's also some water element in it, and also some space and air element in it. There's even some fire element in it because you can see the refraction of light coming off of that. So it's kind of like a dense thing. But those elements, as they exist as expressions, like the roots of this object, this coaster, as they exist down here at the subtle level of creation, they have more like a life to them. They have personality. They have the autonomy to function independently of your and my. Like, I can hold this and I can make it go where I want it to go. But the elements that reside in here, they go the way they want to go. And at that fine level, there's that autonomy there. So the devatas are associated with the subtle expression of the elements. And in Vedic science, they have different names. At the surface, they're called Mahabhutas, and at the subtle, they're called Tanmatras. And so they've been given two names because different laws of nature dominate at different regions along the spectrum of density. So when different laws of nature are dominating, things show up differently. I'm just remembering a little drama that took place with that coaster today, realizing it was just the most beautiful thing. The cup was on the coaster. And when I put the cup on the coaster, I had this weird thought that the cup might fall and break because we're leaving and we're letting go of so many things. We're letting go of so many things. But I have a very nice attachment to this cup because I made it and I like it and I drink out of it every day. So I didn't want it to break. So at that moment that I saw that little energy go past in the cup, that little thing of, oh, it could just fall and break. I was like, no, it doesn't break. And within a minute, this thing happened with my headphones and they hit the cup and the cup flew off the table and it was caught by a web of wires under my table and it did not break. It was like it was caught in a net of energy, right? Because the wires are full of energy. And it was the oddest thing because as it was falling, I'm like, are you going to break? But then I realized no. And so I think I'm bringing it because this is kind of like an example of how we interact, we use our awareness or attention to interact with the subtler laws of nature that are within structure, because there's space in the cup. So that means that the soul of the cup is here in the middle of the cup. And it was that level that I had to talk to, that there was fear there, and it was afraid it was going to, we're getting rid of everything. It was afraid it was going to be jettisoned along with all of my beautiful plants and everything that I have to get rid of. No. So I'm like, no. And I put love in that center, in that silent center where the soul of the cup resides in the space, in this inside. And so that same feeling, that love feeling, and that recognition and appreciation of the living soul that's it. And ceramics is like a perfect example of the five elements, right? Because you start out with dirt, with water mixed in it, and then you create a space, and air dries out the dirt and water till it's really dry. Then it goes into the fire, and the fire causes everything to congeal and vitrify. And then the result is you have this thing that has journeyed through all the different five elements and comes out with a soul. Should give it a name. My cup doesn't have a name, for heaven's sake. Anyway, all right. Sorry. It's been an intense week, guys. I'm getting a little punchy. Please, thank you for forgiving me. Yes, but the elements become elementals. If we want to use English terms, they become elementals when they come down here. And those are the same as devatas. Devata, the word I use to describe the smaller life forces, like the soul in my cup, that I use to describe those. Whereas the word deva is more like these very large expressions of intelligence that reside systemically throughout the whole creation. And they're all in the causal field, and they are represented by different modes of functioning of the causal field. So if we think of the causal field like an ocean, because our causal bodies are everywhere, they spread to the ends of creation. And when the causal field rises up in kind of like a tidal wave, so the whole thing is like doing something in a unified manner, this gives rise to devas, these expressions of intelligence that are spread throughout the entire universe and creation. And when there's just like a little isolated region that's doing its own thing, that would be a devata. When you can imagine the primal elements, they make up this sort of fivefold division of the causal field. And so they're big in that if you take like a fifth of this infinite ocean of the universe, then that's a lot. So I think we can think of them as devas because they're big. Can we look at healing the relationship between the intellect and the emotional body? We are encouraged to approach life mainly through the intellect. Balance between both is so necessary. Oh boy, that is for sure. The other thing is that I think more credence is usually given to the intellect because the intellect can be validated or verified a lot of times, like an intellectual idea, like the scientific theory. You can sometimes use objective means to validate or verify some kind of intellectual construct. But as we've noted in previous webinars, the logic can be used to justify just about anything, even stuff that's not true. Like falsehoods can be justified through logic. But the thing about the heart's truth is that it doesn't conform to those laws of justification or judgment or assumptions or whatever, as much of the heart wisdom, just feeling into everyone's heart and mind connection and relationship. We've got meridians that are running between the two of them. Yeah, the heart wisdom is very big. It's a sort of a centralized energy within the physical body, and it unifies the intelligence of the mind with the intelligence of the gut, which are both great, great intelligences in the body. By the time you add in like all the neural connections in the gut, which are equal to 50% of the ones in the brain, but then you also add in the intelligence of the microbiome, I'd say they probably balance each other out pretty well, the gut and the head. Looks like we're including both of those with this healing. All three. We can think of these as Mahamarmas, big energy centers, head, heart, and gut areas. The heart is able to be provide a catalyst for the healing and integration between the head and the heart, and the gut and the heart. The very, like a small thread or impulse, very fine impulse here, down in the gap, of such sweetness, softness. Love itself unifies, and it also catalyzes the energy healing process. Much of the time it becomes love is like that impulse that gets things started, because love is a form of like compassion and mercy and empathy, and it's the compassion that drives the healing process. There's a unification of differences taking place. The intellect, essentially, its job is to identify differences in our world, right? This is up, this is down, this is brown, this is blue. The intellect helps us navigate the material level of creation. The heart allows us to navigate the finest feeling level. The gut, the gut allows us to navigate the whole, all the details, all the many, many details that run amongst the whole thing. So right now I'm just feeling a very steady flow of this lovely, powerful, soft energy moving through the heart energy center, the heart Mahamarma, and through our healing circle as well, through everyone in the healing circle. And it's what it's doing is it's coordinating with the heart's deepest desire. It's coordinating with the desire, the collective desire of our energy healing webinar group, our healing circle. And one of the things that I see balancing is longing. It's all those impulses of feeling there's like a body in each one of us, a body of feeling unfulfilled of something incomplete. Until the day we die, we will not be complete. We continue to grow. So it's those incompletions. It's all those incompletions, layers of incompletions. And as I'm looking through at the astral level, where all the threads in the web of life are, I see that if you go back in time, there are patterns or sequences of patterns of incompletions. But if we look forward in time, we see sequences and patterns of fulfillment. Oh, that's so interesting. So the incompletions are really expressions of the aspect of oneself, which is up for fulfillment, which is preparing to be fulfilled, which is aiming for fulfillment. And what happens in the heart energy center is the awareness settles down into that astral level and into the causal level, those deep levels of consciousness where what is the past and what is the future, they're not so much seen as separate, but they're able to integrate together to create a larger wholeness. Such a nice question. That larger wholeness then acts as a download for that goes into the head Mahamarma. So this is very interesting because what's happening is the heart energy center, and of course the subtle levels of oneself, the divine in you, is giving rise to a wave of integration and an upgrade of understanding of how to use your awareness to create packages of wholeness or totality, right? Because anytime you have an unfulfilled desire over here and then a fulfilled, the same one gets fulfilled over here in the future, and then you bring them together, it's kind of like they cancel each other out, but less like they cancel each other out and more like they create a new expression for you, which is blessed, which is beautiful, which helps elevate and raise your level of self-understanding and appreciation, recognition of who and what you really are, to a level of that ability where you identify as the divine, because the divine, the source of creation, is completely fulfillment. It's complete fulfillment. And desires rise out of it. I think we did a webinar on this at one point. If we didn't, could you make a note, please, that we should do a webinar on fulfillment? I think that would be really nice, right? Maybe kind of oriented towards manifesting a little bit. Yeah. It's a really nice topic. It rises up. The wholeness, the one, rises up. And as it rises up into the first layers of expression, it starts to encounter laws of nature that are responsible for divisions and separation, right? One starts to appear as many. So that means something's separate the separations. But the thing is that that initial impulse of desire that rises up, it arises, and when it first comes out, it comes out with its fulfillment contained within it, like the principles and the laws of nature and all the resources required to bring that desire to fulfillment are actually contained in the desire. But then what happens is, as we go into the field of separation, it all gets separated, and then you get the fulfillment over here on one end of the timeline and the desire over here on the past area of the timeline. And so then it takes a little bit of, there's like a little process in between, kind of the hero's journey takes place in between to connect the initial, that impulse of desire and wanting and incompletion with its completion. It's just such a beautiful uh, vision. It's such a beautiful way that the one plays in the field of its own nature to create everything. The same pattern is found everywhere. It's found in every organ of the body, every system, every cell, every process, every function. That same story is just over and over and over. And that's what we're working with in energy healing, is we're working with that story from different angles. Because what will happen if the body falls ill is somewhere within that storyline, something got a little bit off. Anyway, coming back to the healing for the intellect, I didn't mean to derail too far off the mark, is that this download is coming up into the head area. And the head area, the intellect, which is used to seeing differences and divisions and separations and so forth, its job is to help you navigate that, as I mentioned. The intellect is able to kind of, it's like it softens. That sweetness, that's the initial impulse for the healing in the heart, goes up into the head, and it softens the ability of the intellect to recognize paradoxes, recognize expressions of the field that seemingly disagree with each other, and to be able to find the commonality between them. And particularly this healing for the intellect is moving back in time through all those moments of the past when you felt gripped, and even the heart felt gripped by incompletions. All those moments when it looked like it wasn't going to work out nicely, or where you brought intentions out to the material field and then something else happened. Something you weren't intending happened. And I can feel the heart energy center is just continuing to pump out this beautiful sweetness, this lovely, soft, sweet energy. Maybe, you know, as those of you who've been with me for a while know, I usually get downloads for a couple of weeks before a webinar, because there's, you know, interesting information that I'm supposed to give you guys that it's like, you're deserving. And so because I'm the instrument in these sessions, I'm supposed to get this information and bring it out to you. And we've, not gonna lie, been rather distracted by the fact that we're leaving in, what is it, 48 hours from now? We're leaving really soon. Maybe it's 72 or something, but it's coming right up. And it's been very distracting, because we're basically jettisoning my entire adult life worth of belongings, or just, we're going to be in a little one-room apartment, so we just have to get rid of everything. Yeah, plants that have been friends of mine for 4 decades, you know, like really, we're just getting rid of it all. And it's a little distracting. It's been a little distracting to let go of, figure out where we're putting everything. And so I thought, well, I'm not getting any downloads, but actually that's not true. I'm realizing at this moment that there was this very precious experience that came up about 2 or 3 days ago. I had gone to a friend to give him a bunch of stuff, trying to give people stuff as best I can. And he has this unbelievably amazing painting in his house. It's a painting, it's a watercolor painting by a great artist. Her name's Lynn Durham, and it's massive. I think the painting's like maybe 8 or 10 feet tall. It's like a really big painting, and it's a watercolor. So you don't see big watercolors like that, but it's a painting of the mother of the universe, all in glory, like in God-like proportions. It's just the most incredible thing. And my friend, who's like one of the most spiritual, amazing men in the world that I've ever known, he's just such an incredible soul. He has like this very deep relationship with the soul of the Mother Divine. So we were standing there before this painting, and he was saying, "Oh, this is, how I interact with Mother Divine. With the painting is kind of like the conduit or the channel by which I do that." And I put my hand on her heart, and it was so like visceral was my connection to the heart of the Mother of the Universe. It was so beautiful, and it created an impression. It was like there was like a download, right? Because that was like this here, heart to heart download, and the softness. And that this was the form of the Mother of the Universe that's specifically associated with the heart area of the body. So this obviously is coming to play in the field of today's webinar. And we keep coming back again and again to this incredible softness, which has also, for those of you who are meeting with me this week, since I had that experience, you probably might recall a few moments in our healing sessions where that was also coming into play. But this is the way that totality integrates in the relative. First, it shows up as just this little, very, very abstract impulse of energy. And the impulse of energy is like a seed, and it shows up as a feeling. It shows up as a kind of a feeling. And in this case, the feeling was drenched in light. It's drenched in this incredible, soft, so abstract. It's almost like, is it the unmanifest, or is it just barely it was so abstract. We could definitely call this a deva, right? This is the deva of the Mother of the Universe, energy that's present everywhere. So it's so close to the unmanifest field of being that it's just barely perceptible as something. It's so close to just pure symmetry, pure perfection, pure light. And what I'm seeing is the interaction between the heart's deepest desire, both of our collective and of our individual selves, and that lovely, pure, eternal, universally present aspect of expression of this one wholeness. It's so integrative. It's right between your pure potential and your heart's desire. It's right there. It's right there, drawing the heart's desire deeper into its own nature, causing the individual heart's desire to refine and become more subtle. As the heart's desire becomes more subtle, the senses of perception have to follow, because it's your heart's desire. So it's like we have no choice but for the senses of perception to fall into that gap with the heart's desire. And as that happens, it provides an experience that changes the way we perceive. It changes expands the capabilities of the senses of perception to start to stretch. It's like doing an asana. It's like doing yoga, right? You kind of stretch slowly, but if you go slowly enough, you can stretch farther than you could stretch before, something like that. This is what's happening. It's a stretch for the senses of perception. It's very soft. It's very beautiful. The context of the Mother of Creation energy there allows the soul or the self the ego, what we think of as our sense of self, to feel safe in this process, to know that it is safe, not just to feel safe, but to be safe. To be safe. At first, I was like, oh, we have to clear some fear, because there's that fear of, well, if I'm down in this like dark, murky area at the deep levels of consciousness, like maybe I'm going to bump into something that's unsavory or something like that. But no, everything, it's all good. Ultimately, even the darkest, densest energies are longing and striving to be expressions of totality. So there's, as human beings, our job is to facilitate that process with everything that we bump into, everything we interact with, everything we know. The nature, the human nature, because of the fact that we can focus awareness, is to integrate that wholeness into all the separate forms, any forms of separation, any suffering, any struggle, any pain, any trauma. That's what we do. See how beautiful you are? So beautiful. All right. Should we be able to articulate our heart's desire? I don't feel I really know what my deepest desire is. Okay, that's just a great question. And the reason it's so important is because the heart's deepest desire is not, I'm not sure it's even articulatable, if articulatable is a word. I mean, there was a time when the heart's deepest desire could be articulated. I would say now, today, you can articulate your heart's deepest desires from past incarnations. Because once you go through an incarnation where the desire is the seed of the incarnation, and you go through the incarnation and you live out the process of integrating and expressing that heart's desire, and then you die, then it's pretty easy to look back and say, oh, this is what I was doing in that lifetime. This was the important lessons that I learned. And excuse me, more water. These are the important lessons I learned. And, and this is how the divine was working through me in that lifetime. But when you're in the lifetime, you're so close to that heart's desire. It definitely is experienced more like an impulse of pure creative intelligence, to borrow words from Maharishi, because he was brilliant. Creative intelligence, like an impulse. Think of it as an impulse of knowingness, or an impulse of desire, but an impulse of pure being on the rise, an impulse of pure being on the rise. So as other experiences in the causal field of creation, that heart's deepest desire tends to remain abstract, like a foundational element in the course of life's experiences. I'd say the better we can actually directly experience it, the better we're able to harness that expression in its purest form, so that heart's deepest desire is coming forward, and and the life is a trajectory of its fulfillment. A lot of things happen in this subtle level of creation that evade language, which makes my job really interesting, because I'm trying to unpack everything, right? It can usually string a few words together to make it all make sense. I'm just looking at the person who asked that question and how love ties in to their personal deepest desire, heart's deepest desire, and how the importance of relationships, like the role of relationships in fulfilling that heart's deepest desire. And there's a healing or purification for the relationships at their deepest level here. That purity and softness of the mother of creation energy, like settling into all those sacred gardens where you meet those that you love. For everybody, then you become the kingpin. The lady who asked this question, or the person, let's see, is anonymous, right? Yes, we don't know, could be a man. But anyway, the person who asked this question then becomes the kingpin for the healing for everybody in the session. All those sacred spaces where we meet the people that we love, the softness of that and purity and power of that energy of the mother of creation is moving. It's moving, it's on the move in the heart chakra, which means it's on the move in the gap here to create, it appears to create more symmetry. Oh, that's so interesting. In the field of relationships with other people. Oh, I love that. And more symmetry means that the relationship, it gets closer to source, right? Because the divisions, there's like more dividing and more dividing as we go more to the surface, and then more unity as we go closer into the source. So the more balance is becoming like a central pillar in each of those sacred spaces of relationships. But also the ability to witness for both yourself and the people that you love, so that what happens is this ability to witness, which I think was part of an earlier healing in today's session, right? And it's kind of like moving into the sacred space that you have with the people that you love, as a feature of that environment, as like a pillar or a kind of a consistent expression of intelligence, your intelligence in those relationships. And what that does is it supports your ability to spontaneously express yourself in relationships in a way that allows both you and the person that you love to witness your experience with each other and to witness your relationship. And that's just so important, to not be gripped, right, by any way little things that happen, because things always happen no matter how much you love someone. There are always going to be those moments where there's some little misunderstanding or something. So this balance, so like kind of like the balance of power, right? The power structure, or the degree to which each person is contributing, it's like more fair. And then also that witnessing ability. And I love how the witnessing ability comes in as a way of honoring the mother of the universe, because that mother of the universe kind of stands above and beyond everything, right? The shift, I'm smiling because the shift is happening in the gap, and it's so sweet. It's so pretty. It's so beautiful. It's so good for the world on so many levels, because that type of shift in your relationships with the people you love then will propagate out to other, oh, yes, good, to other relationships with other people. And this, you guys, is also an antidote. It's also an antidote for the sometimes, and this is something I've been working with in the last week or so, couple of weeks, as I continue to do research into the pandemic, into I can't say certain words on YouTube, but into some of the circumstances around that whole issue of people getting sick and getting better, getting sick and getting better. And one of the principles here is that so illnesses have their reality at the surface, and then they have their reality deep down inside, right? And what happens is certain proteins whose names we will not mention, certain proteins have this tendency to fold in a way. They have self-referral folds in them. And there's a whole category of illnesses in our world caused by misfolded proteins. There's a whole category. They're called prions, I think, when they misfold. And um, this healing that's happening is an antidote for that. And what's really interesting when I was doing some research into prions is I discovered that at this time, modern medicine really doesn't have any cures for prion, for the misfolding of proteins. And that the illnesses that come out of the misfolding of proteins are really awful. And that people suffer a lot physically, and they pretty much always end in death. So that's just completely no fun. And this is an area where our world really needs some support, some energy healing support. And look how beautiful you are again. You keep being beautiful, that you, as a group, as a collective, we created this healing that's an antidote to that problem. Oh, because we see what's happening is we go down into the subtle levels and we create a structure that uh, gives rise to healthy folds. It gives rise to the place where we have relationships with other people, those sacred spaces in our heart, in the deep levels of our being, where we have relationships with other people, to structure those so that those relationships naturally, spontaneously function in a very healthy manner, very functional relationships. And it's like if you give a smile to the bus driver in the morning, then your smile goes all around the town all day, right? It's that same principle, that when we have functional, healthy, happy relationships with the people we know and that we love, then what that does is it starts to propagate. And that those individuals, they look into their relationships with us and they think, oh, this is such a good relationship. Maybe I could tweak a little bit my relationship with this other person, something like that. So we're creating a wave of self-referral, folding of consciousness in on its own nature in a way that optimizes the health of relationships and then propagates. That's so cool. So sweet. And it's just like nature functioning, right? It's just something that it's like there are laws of nature already present to help make that happen. Beautiful. So it's spontaneous, but it would not have happened if we were not in this group together doing this. It just is born of of our relationship. Oh, great question. Oh my God, more great questions. Here's some more. So we have a heart's desire that contributes to the purpose of the incarnation, yes, but we also have karma and lessons, yes. How do these relate to each other? Oh, that's just every question's just like a slam dunk, you guys. Beautiful. All right. So the lessons run parallel to the heart's desire. The heart's desire drives a person into situations and circumstances that allow the lessons to unfold. Experiences that are karmic, here I can feel it going back and sort of referring to this healing that we just did, but experiences that are, I'll see if I can tie it all together because it's like abstract, right? Anyway, experiences that are karmic are opportunities to rise up, essentially, because if, for example, and I know I've given this example before, and it's not my example, it comes from the Vedas, but the idea is that maybe in some past time, a man or a person accrued a debt of, say, $1,000, and it was too much. They couldn't pay that debt. They just had that debt weighing on them. And at some point, the debt collector comes knocking at the door, and they have to, oh my gosh, Uh, the debt collector comes knocking at the door, and the person has to pay. But what the person can do is, at that time, if they know they don't have any $1,000 to pay the debt collector, they reach down their consciousness deep down and they hide. They hide here in the field of being, or they hide in the subtle levels. Maybe the debt collector has conscious awareness up in this area. So you just need to hide deeper than the debt collector, basically. And then in this hiding in the deep levels, it buys you time to develop and evolve and accrue more wealth. And you can keep doing that until you become a millionaire. Because remember, we have desires that eventually get fulfilled. So the desire for enough money to pay off all the debts eventually gets fulfilled. And then at that point, the debts are paid and the person hardly notices the paying of the debts. It's like, oh, no problem. No, I'll just have my secretary do that, right? Something like that. Yeah. You guys, I can't believe the time. I just looked at the clock and I realized we already met our hour, and for 15 minutes already full. Like I hadn't even looked at the clock this whole time. So I guess we have to stop. In order to honor, I would like to honor everyone, and the people on the East Coast need to go to bed on time and so forth. I mean, you're grown-ups, you can go to bed when you want, but anyway, I don't want to be responsible for keeping you up past 10 because that's no fun. So I don't want that karma. I don't want that debt. So what I will do is I will make copies of the, oh, somebody's asking if they could take care of my plants while I'm away. You are so lovely. I'm giving away almost all of them. And then the few that are staying, my son is going to move to the new place and he's promised to water them. We shall see if he waters them. But anyway, thank you for offering. You're such a dear friend. Thank you. Okay, so I love you guys. And all these incredible questions came in. Oh my goodness. Okay, guys, I promise tomorrow, I promise we'll start in with questions. Because that's what we usually do on Saturday anyway. And the questions always give rise to these wonderful healings. So that'll be an extra pleasure and a delight for tomorrow's session. I love you. I'm grateful for every one of your questions. Thank you so much. I'm grateful for the dynamic relationship that we have in these webinars that allows healings and knowledge to come forth that wouldn't otherwise. That's so incredibly cool. And I can hardly wait to see you tomorrow. So have a nice night, everybody. Have a good sleep. I hope you can sleep after all this wildness. And I'll see you very soon. And take care. Thank you for being with me. Bye.